Now, as an American, I will say I don't know much about the World Cup, but I do not believe this. There's just no way one World Cup is 104 Super Bowls. I mean, the Super Bowl here in America is our biggest thing ever. The World Cup or Super Bowl were on at the same time. Which one would you watch? Like, I have to see, because I really don't see how one
What would you
World
say
Cup
is
would
bigger,
be.
the Super Bowl or the World Cup final?
The Super Bowl. You know, the fan base is bigger.
It's the gladiator sport of the current day.
This is the toughest game. This is the hardest game you'll ever play.
I would say the Super Bowl.
Get hit by a bus at 30 miles an
You would
hour is
think,
different
like-
than kicking a ball into a net.
Whenever a clip like this goes viral, you just know the comments will be brutal. For many, it's the perfect ground to make fun of American sports fans. The truth is,
Don't
for
do
football
that.
fans around the world, the comparison feels laughable. How
Does
can
that
a
seem
single American
4
event
billion?
even come close to the biggest sporting spectacle in the world? This debate has been around for a while, but this year it feels a little different. Because only a few months after Super Bowl 60, the World Cup will also take place in the US, so the discourse is back again, bigger than ever. But from a purely statistical point of view, there really is no debate. The World Cup blows the Super
Whoa.
Bowl out of the water. So despite all that, why does the World Cup pale in comparison to the Super Bowl for American audiences? What do the numbers really say?
How is it so
And
much
are the
bigger?
two sporting worlds finally learning from each other? This is Football Explained.
How? I know World Cup, but come on.
One of the most defining moments of Michael Jackson's career didn't happen on a world tour. It happened at the Super Bowl halftime show in 1993. Decades later, it's still part of the conversation, and that captures the
Does the World Cup have halftime shows?
unique power of America's cultural exports, where music, television, and sport often share the same stage. That context matters when Americans describe the Super Bowl as the biggest sporting event in the world. But beyond the US, that framing often lands badly, because in football culture, the talking is done on the pitch. Everything else is noise, which makes the Super Bowl feel like the antithesis of football. From an ideological standpoint, football has little tolerance for what it sees as gimmicks. Any change in familiarity and suddenly, the game's gone. So when the flagship football event, the World Cup, gets dragged into the same sentence as quote-unquote an unserious American sport,
Unserious?
the football faithful find it straight up offensive. The reaction is usually mockery, not debate. Inside the US, though, the Super Bowl occupies a very different space. It happens every year. Friends, families, and workplaces revolve around it. It's an annual social ritual. Beyond the game itself, the halftime show sits at the center of the event.
The Super Bowl is the culmination.
I love how our
obviously,
halftime show is
of
iconic.
The season. It is the most watched event every year on television.
That was Bob Dorfman, a sports market analyst based in the United States.
It far exceeds anything else. The halftime show has become a huge event. Some people just watch it to see who's going to be performing at halftime.
While football fans
Literally.
obsess over jersey drops, the NFL world speculates for months about which artist will headline halftime, and music is only half the story.
So I love how in America we show up to the Super Bowl to watch a rapper or artist perform. At the World Cup, you actually show up to watch the World Cup.
TV commercials are the other half of the equation.
The interesting thing is that people don't just watch it for the game. They watch it for the commercials. It's kind of the one event where people don't turn off the commercials. It's become
The
part of
2-hour-long
show.
commercials.
Super Bowl ads are treated less like interruptions and more like premieres.
Favorite traditions this time of year, our Super Bowl commercial kickoff. Every year, we bring you a first look at the commercials that everybody's going to be talking about. So, first up, Pepsi. Their ad this year features a soda-loving polar
You're not the only one, but this can be
Classic.
A 30-second commercial during Super Bowl 60 costs about $8 million on average. Some companies could go on to pay $10 million
That is so
or
crazy.
more. In comparison, football's continuous format leaves little room for in-game commercials. Again, apples and oranges here,
No
but the
commercials at
advertising
the
revenue
World
for
Cup.
football is far less concentrated and far less
You're telling me there's no commercials at the World Cup?
lucrative than the Super Bowls. These ads, like the halftime shows themselves, have become cultural landmarks, not just in America, but globally. In fact, the attention of Super Bowl is so lucrative that the halftime artists don't even get paid for their performances. And yet, despite all of this spectacle, the World Cup still eclipses the Super Bowl by a long shot. We'll get to the numbers shortly, but in early 2025, FIFA President Gianni Infantino threw fuel on the fire with a comparison that didn't go down well at all.
You're gonna have to show me that one.
Was this part of the
How
plan
would
in
it be that many
expanding
Super
it to
Bowls?
give some of
How?
these nations the opportunity to have that moment, to have that celebration?
Well, 100%. The World Cup next year, the FIFA World Cup, Canada, Mexico, United States. As you said, 104 matches, 104 Super Bowls, actually, in 1 month.
How?
This was Gianni Infantino's attempt to explain the scale of the World Cup to an American audience, that with 104 matches in the tournament, each one is effectively a Super Bowl-level event. But is that really a fair comparison?
Yeah, is
Before
it?
the numbers, one quick clarification. When people say World Cup finals, they usually mean the entire tournament. The final, singular, is just the last match. And that distinction matters when numbers enter the picture.
The only true comparison you can make is the World Cup final versus the Super Bowl. Obviously, the World Cup is a series of matches. The
Right.
Super Bowl is one match. But if you
Right.
look at the final of the World Cup versus the final of the Super Bowl, the World Cup viewership is 10 times, dwarfs the Super Bowl in terms of
10
importance and
times?
viewership.
Let's take a look at the
Huh?
top 5 most watched games in Qatar 2022. Argentina versus France in the World Cup final drew an average live audience of 570.8 million
Oh
people.
my.
These are not cumulative totals. These are people watching the same match at the same time. Now compare that to the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 59 averaged 127.7 million viewers in the United States.
Right.
With a population of 342 million, that means over 37% of the country was tuned into a single game. So, it makes sense why the Super Bowl feels enormous inside America. But
Right.
globally, in 2022, the world's population stood at roughly 8 billion. That means close to 7% of the entire planet watched the World Cup final live. Let that sit for a second. 7% of the entire planet. There's no real comparison when you go head to head. But this is where context matters. The World Cup
7%.
happens once every 4 years, whereas the Super Bowl happens every year.
I think what Infantino is doing is adding up the viewership of every
The World Cup only comes around every 4 years? See, I didn't even know that. See, as an American, I'm just lost in my own world. Forgive me. Sorry, guys.
World Cup game and comparing that to the one Super Bowl. That does not make sense. But to say that it's 104 times is ridiculous.
Super Bowl figures are measured as average minute audiences within the US, and they spike sharply around halftime. One event spreads attention across a month, every 4 years.
Everyone only
The
comes
other
for halftime.
concentrates it into a single night, every year. That also explains why not every World Cup match carries equal weight. Group games don't pull final-level audiences, and that doesn't diminish the tournament. It shows how scale distributes itself across several matches. In the
Okay.
end,
Okay, so the real question now is the quarter and semis of the World Cup even bigger than the Super Bowl? Because if that's true, then I'm mind blown.
NFL,
I'm
even
mind-blown.
regular season games can rival or exceed many World Cup group stage audiences. A Thanksgiving game alone can reach nearly 40 million viewers inside the US. So perhaps the Champions League final is a fairer comparison, where the numbers are slightly closer, and comparing it to every World Cup match moves the story in the other direction. If anything, these numbers
We're getting compared to the Champions League. We're not even on the level with the World Cup.
clarify what each event is designed to do. The World Cup maximizes reach. The Super Bowl maximizes concentration. Once that distinction is clear, the question shifts. And while the rest of the world keeps arguing about which is bigger, the sports organizations are playing a much bigger game. With the World Cup just months away, we're creating the most premium content we've ever made. A dedicated World Cup docuseries, exclusive deep dives you won't see anywhere else, a members-only newsletter, and a few secret projects. If you want to be ahead of everyone else,
What's crazy, like, is it obvious what's supposed to be bigger, the World Cup or Super Bowl? Because here in America, it feels like the Super Bowl is bigger.
part of it. We'll see you on the other side. Now, back to the video. Sure, these are two very different sports, but the more interesting story is what they've both figured out along the way, that the best outcome is borrowing from one another. And over the past decade,
They do?
especially in recent years, that's exactly what's been happening. Football, for example, has increasingly leaned into eventization. Opening ceremonies have always mattered at the World Cup, but live performances tied to match days are relatively new. The 2026 World Cup final is set to feature a Super Bowl-style halftime show, and before that, Champions League experimented with pre-match concerts featuring artists
So
like
is this the first halftime show for the World Cup ever? Because if so, this is like, we're living in history.
Lenny Kravitz, Dua Lipa, and Lincoln Park. These moments have become part of football culture, even if the reception is still mixed. Some broadcasters have even opted not to broadcast the concerts live, but instead focus on the pre-match analysis.
Interesting thing to me is that they just announced that there's going to be hydration breaks during each half of every World Cup game, no matter what the weather is. And that presents an opportunity for advertisers to spend money, which has always been a difficulty for soccer to catch on in America, is because there really isn't an opportunity for advertisers to.
The America is so bad here in America. We got a mandatory hydration break. It's just so weird. He said that as if that's not normal. Do they normally not have a hydration break? They just go the whole game without drinking?
Spend money and run commercials. So allowing that to happen for 3 minutes, sort of turning the World Cup, instead of halves, turning it into quarters, which makes it more like a football game. Know that all the advertisers, everybody who wants to sponsor World Cup games here is loving that they can, buy time and run ads and influence people and build their audience.
The NFL, on the other hand, has been looking outward. It's actively pushing the sport beyond the United States to globalize it, something football has been doing for over a century. The clearest example is the NFL International Series, which began in London in 2007 and has since expanded into Germany, Mexico, and now South America and Australia. And to host these games, the NFL partners with, guess who? Football clubs and their stadiums. The NFL regular
I'm gonna go ahead and say it's probably safe to assume nobody watches football or the NFL outside of America.
season games have been played at Wembley, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Allianz Arena, and even at the legendary Estadio Azteca. In fact, they just recently inked a multi-year deal for regular season games to keep playing at Real Madrid's Bernabeu. On the other hand, the NFL stadiums are being prepped for the World Cup too. This underscores how deep into football territory the NFL has gone. If the trend continues and the NFL keeps pushing into new markets, there could one day be a Super Bowl outside of America. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell has said an international Super Bowl isn't unthinkable long-term, especially if the league ever adds a team outside the US. But even then, this comparison may never truly fade. And maybe that's the wrong question to even begin with, because despite everything, the World Cup might always be the biggest sporting event on Earth. That part isn't up for debate. But the Super Bowl proves something important. That when you create a sense of belonging and build a strong culture,
has the World Cup always been the biggest sport in the whole world?
You will get fandom that will last generations. And to these fans, nothing else matters. So, perhaps, at their core, the two sports might be more alike than they are different.
The World Cup final this time, it's getting a halftime show, so maybe it's taking a leaf out the Super Bowl's butt.
Over America, the way they do sports is remarkable, and we can obviously take loads of pages from their book, but it's the World Cup. Everyone knows about it and everyone wants to win it. If you live outside America, you probably watch the Super Bowl, but you're not overly bothered about it, whereas everyone wants to watch the World Cup. Even if
so you guys do watch the Super Bowl?
Like sports, you watch the World Cup, so yeah, 1,000,000% bigger.
That's the thing, a raise of hands, would anyone actually watch the Super Bowl if it's on? You would? Three. So
Three people raised their hand. Come on. Comment down below your thoughts on the World Cup and the Super Bowl. Is it a comparison? Are they even close? And if the World Cup was on and the Super Bowl was on at the same time, which one are you watching? Leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want me to keep reacting and keep making more for you guys. And look out for the next video coming out tomorrow.